In January 1997, Randy California, guitarist of the band Spirit, drowned off the coast of Maui, Hawaii, saving his son from a rip current. He was 45 years old. He had spent nearly 3 decades telling anyone who would listen that Jimmy Page had taken the opening of Stairway to Heaven from a guitar passage he wrote in 1968. He gave interviews about it. He spoke about it on stage. He wrote about it in liner notes. No one with the legal standing or financial resources to pursue the claim took action during his lifetime. He never saw the inside of a courtroom. His estate brought the Spirit was a Los Angeles rock band formed in 1967. Randy California was 19 years old when the band recorded their debut album. Among the tracks he wrote was an instrumental piece titled Taurus, a descending chromatic guitar arpeggio, finger-picked, approximately 2 minutes long. The album was released in January 1968. Taurus was not a single and received limited radio play. It was, however, performed regularly at Spirit's live shows throughout 1968. Randy California was its sole credited composer. The passage that would later become the subject of a federal lawsuit was not the kind of thing that attracted attention at the time. In the autumn and winter of 1968, Led Zeppelin and Spirit shared billing on several dates of a North American tour. The two bands performed on the same stages, in the same venues, on the same nights. Jimmy Page was present at concerts where Spirit performed Taurus. This fact, established during the trial and not disputed by Led Zeppelin, became the foundation of the lawsuit's central argument. That Page had the opportunity to hear the passage before he wrote anything resembling it. Opportunity, however, is not the same as proof. What Page heard, what he remembered, and what influence, if any, it had on what he wrote, later remained the central question of a case. Stairway to Heaven was written by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant in late 1970, reportedly at Bron I'r Awr, a remote cottage in Wales where the band retreated to write material for their 4th album. The guitar introduction, a descending chromatic arpeggio played fingerstyle, was Page's composition. The song was recorded at Island Studios in London in December 1970 and released on Led Zeppelin IV in November 1971. It became, over the following decades, the most requested song in the history of American rock radio. The opening passage became one of the most recognized sequences of notes in popular music. It was also the musical similarity between the opening of Stairway to Heaven and the guitar passage in Taurus centers on a descending chromatic bass line beneath a finger-picked arpeggio pattern, a minor moving downward through G sharp, G natural, and F sharp. Music scholars and legal experts who analyzed both pieces during the trial offered differing conclusions. Led Zeppelin's position was that the descending chromatic scale in question was a common musical device used by composers across centuries and could not be owned by any individual. Spirit's position was that the specific combination of elements, the arpeggio pattern, the rhythm, the harmonic movement, was sufficiently distinctive to constitute. Randy California raised the issue of similarity publicly as early as the mid-1970s. He mentioned it in interviews. He discussed it in Spirit's liner notes. He spoke about it from the stage during performances. His claims were noted in music journalism of the period and then largely set aside. Led Zeppelin was, by this point, one of the most commercially powerful bands in the world. Spirit was not. The asymmetry between the two acts, in resources, in public profile, in legal standing, made any formal challenge appear impractical. California continued to perform and record with Spirit through the following decades. He continued to raise the issue of In January 1997, Randy California went swimming with his 12-year-old son, Quinn, near Molokai, Hawaii. Quinn was caught in a rip current. Randy swam to him, pushed him to safety, and was pulled under himself. His body was not recovered. He was 45 years old. He had given an interview shortly before his death in which he discussed the Taurus and Stairway similarity. It was among the last substantive interviews he ever gave. With his death, the question of whether a legal case could be brought became more complicated. Randy California had no will. The rights to his compositions. In May 2014, Michael Skidmore, acting as trustee for Randy California's estate, filed a lawsuit in federal court in Los Angeles against Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and their publishing companies, alleging copyright infringement in Stairway to Heaven. The suit sought damages and songwriting credit for Randy California. Led Zeppelin's legal team responded that the claims were without merit, that the descending chromatic figure was not original to Taurus, and that the statute of limitations presented additional complications. The case attracted international attention immediately, not only because of the financial stakes involved, but because of the song at its center. Stairway to Heaven had generated hundreds. The trial took place in federal court in Los Angeles in May and June of 2016. Jimmy Page testified. Robert Plant testified. Expert witnesses for both sides presented musical analysis. A central legal issue emerged that had not been widely anticipated. Under copyright law, as it existed in 1971, musical works were registered through the deposit of sheet music rather than recordings. The sheet music Spirit had deposited for Taurus did not contain the distinctive arpeggio passage. Only the recording did. The jury was therefore instructed to compare only what appeared in the deposited sheet music, not what could be heard on the recording. On June 23, 2016, the jury returned a verdict of 8-0 in favor of Led Zeppelin. The jury found that the elements of Taurus that appeared in the deposited sheet music were not sufficiently similar to the opening of Stairway to Heaven to constitute copyright infringement. Randy California was not awarded songwriting credit. The financial claims were dismissed. Led Zeppelin's attorneys described the verdict as a complete victory. Spirit's legal team announced their intention to appeal. The decision was reported across international media, not only as a legal outcome, but as the resolution of a dispute that had existed. The appeals process extended the case for several more years. In 2018, a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the trial verdict, finding that the jury had been given incorrect instructions. Led Zeppelin appealed. In 2020, the full Ninth Circuit Court, sitting en banc with 11 judges, reversed the 2018 decision and reinstated the original jury verdict in favor of Led Zeppelin. The court upheld the trial court's approach to the sheet music limitation and found no reversible error in the original proceedings. The case was effectively concluded. The Stairway to Heaven case did not resolve the underlying question that Randy California had raised for 30 years. Courts do not determine what one musician heard when listening to another. They determine what can be proven under applicable law with available evidence. What Jimmy Page heard at those 1968 concerts, whether Taurus registered, whether it stayed with him, whether it surfaced years later in a cottage in Wales, is something no verdict can settle. Randy California spent his adult life on the question. He saved his son's life and lost his own before the answer arrived. The answer, when it came, belonged to the law, what it means about music, memory, and what one